Well, g'day everyone. I appreciated the little ad for Paradosis Creation Conference. So that's in just a week and a half now, and it's going to be exciting. Got a good lineup of people coming, most cases in real life, other cases virtually, but it's going to be really good. Well, I'm talking today about Psalm 139, and so I'll talk about it in enough detail that it'll be worth opening it up on your phone. But I'm launching out thinking about myself as in a great trio of car guys. So one of these car guys is my father-in-law, my wife Naomi. Some of you will have met Naomi. Her father was driving cars from the age of about 12. My wife's grandfather owned a car yard in southeast Queensland, and so my father-in-law was responsible to drive cars in and out of the lot, 12, 13, 14. So he was introduced to cars very early. Now he has 3 vintage cars, a 1928 Essex, a 1936 Buick, and I can never remember the third one, even though I've been to the property many times. He maintains them himself. He has to kind of figure out his own tech in a way that people who operate a modern car don't have to do. He has to re-tin joints and do all these things. He just has to figure out how they're done because the parts are not available anymore. So he's very creative. The second one I'm thinking about is Jack Brabham. Now, this sort of would mean something to an older generation, older than me actually, just to make that point. Jack Brabham, I think, to this day is the only person who's ever won a Formula One race in a car he built himself in 1966. I said I am a car guy, and as a car guy, I really appreciate that must take a lot of car know-how to build your own car and race it and win. So he was a sort of a picture of fame in the car world about 60 years ago, and so I figured, what with my father-in-law stacking up like that and Jack Brabham, I wanted to join such illustrious company. And so in the last week, I've bought a vibrant pink Toyota Yaris, and now I'm in the group. And if you think I'm joking, look in the car park. I'm almost tempted just to leave it there as if I just wanted it. I didn't really want it. It's for my daughter. But, I sort of feel like I can hold my head up now and look Jack Brabham in the virtual eyes and go, you and me, mate, we're sort of together. So why did I mention that? In Psalm 139, there's nobody that knows the constitution of a car like the person who built the car. You can imagine Jack Brabham having a mechanical problem and being able to actually fix the problem himself better than anyone else, right? Nobody does that in Formula One today. And so Psalm 139 has this sense that the Lord who makes you is the one who knows you best, and that's a two-edged sword. It's very interesting when you read commentaries on Psalm 139 to see whether the tone of the psalm is meant to be positive or negative, whether being known that thoroughly is a good thing or a bad thing. I think we come from the point of view as typical church readers that to be known in this way is a really wonderful thing. And I don't want to wreck that for you, but I just want to tell you that there's potentially another side to that kind of knowing. In a moment I'll read the psalm, but when I read this kind of in detail and study it, read it in the original and so forth, some of these words for knowing are very strong, and it all depends how you feel about that on whether you want to be known that well. So, and I have to admit, I'm going to take away one of your favourite bits of this psalm. I didn't mean to, I didn't set out to do it. It probably doesn't mean what it says in most of our Bibles. We'll get that. So you've searched me and known me, Lord. I'm reading the NIV. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before. See, there's sort of two sides to that. Such knowledge is too wonderful, too awesome for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. And if I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn and settle on the far side of the sea, even there your right hand will guide me. Your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you, for the night will shine like the day. For darkness is as light to you. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I'll praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. If only you, God, would slay the wicked. Away from me, you who are bloodthirsty. They speak of you with evil intent. Your adversaries misuse your name. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Some people like 3/4 of this psalm, and then they just don't like the last bit, or they don't use it in the sermon, or what have you. I'm going to deal with it simply by saying, I think in ancient Near East language, this was the best way to say, I'm on your side, I'm loyal to you. Part of being loyal to someone, I think culturally, was your friends are my friends, your enemies are my enemies. I adopt both. I adopt your friends as my friends, I adopt your enemies as my enemies. And really more so, the psalmist says, because I love you, I hate those who hate you. It's strong. I think it makes sense culturally. But going back to the start of the psalm, this is a psalm of 4 blocks, and they're just about even stanzas. They're just about even in length. So it's a very regular psalm, 4 balanced stanzas, and some of them with subsections. And so we could say that the first stanza is all about being thoroughly known. If you count the noun, the word know turns up 7 times. So the verb know, and then there's 3 verbs. The centre one is the noun knowledge, and then 3 more verbs again. So knowing is the theme word, really, of this psalm. And there's no other biblical text that really expounds so deeply this idea of being so open, so thoroughly known to God. Every word before it's spoken, every action before it's conceived, every thought, every plan, the daily cycle, every part. The first verse has that word for kind of word you would use if you were digging a mine, exploring its deepest limits. It turns up in Job 28 for those who've done wisdom as well. So it's that thorough knowledge in that first block, in every detail, in every corner. A knowledge that kind of brings the psalmist to a position of awe. And there's a couple of words for awe in this psalm that I'm not sure whether they tip on the wondrous side or on the fear side. We should kind of hold them in tension. So it's another bit of a boundary concept. It's wonderful to the point of being kind of terrifying. It's a little bit like one of those roller coasters that just takes you to right at the edge where I'm not sure if I'm enjoying this or just kind of hanging on for dear life. It's that kind of feel. And then the second stanza is more in the sense of distance and dimension. If I was to go to the edges of creation. And so the cosmos is kind of carved out by mentioning its limits. The dawn, the person in this culture, their natural orientation was east. We think north is the direction that makes the most sense, and you talk about digressing from north, and our compasses all point north But if you were an Israelite or a person in the ancient Near East, east was the natural direction, the direction of sunrise, and you would talk about your directions based on facing east, and all the temples faced east, right? That was the natural direction. And so mention is the dawn, I could rise on the wings of the dawn, I could go as far east as we know how to go, or I could settle on the far side of the sea. The obvious thing if you're facing east in Israel is the Mediterranean Sea, right? So it's all ocean back in that direction. I could settle on the far side. That's as far as I could go. Even there, your hand would guide me, your right hand hold me fast. Verse before in verse 8, I could go up as high as the heavens. You're there. Even if I kind of lie down with the maggots, this is kind of Sheol. This is lying in the abode of the dead, and a lot of Old Testament writers will write as if God can't go there or doesn't go there. Even if I make my bed in the depths, you're there. What other dimensions are there? Well, the light and the darkness of day and night, and even the darkness is not dark to you. There are other Bible texts that talk about those who want to do dastardly deeds, do them in the dark. Well, that's no protection if you're dealing with this Lord, because the darkest corner is not dark to him. The third stanza has that idea of creation now, personal creation. This is part of what's attracted me to this text, is I'm trying to know a thing or two about creation in advance of next weekend, after this one. And I've even got a mystifying note to myself from notes about a decade old that says, not a creation psalm. And I still don't know why I said that. It kind of is. And fortunately, there's a gap that I see that I'm going to try to address at the conference when I talk about Old Testament creation. And that is, I think we often conceive of creation in generic terms. We're often concerned with the creation of the world, the cosmos, or else of the human species, collectively, humanity, mankind, but we don't address and we don't treat our Bibles as if they address the creation of the individual. And I don't think we really personalise the meaning of creation until we take it personally. But do we have the biblical justification? Well, I do think that this psalm, with some other passages, justifies us in seeing ourselves as creations of God. That has immediate theological ramifications and philosophical ramifications. It means not every creation of God is instant and miraculous, or at least it's not instant. It's still miraculous. But it also means that pastorally we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and take ourselves seriously as created by God. All right? We're kind of offending what God has done if we despise ourselves and look in the mirror and hate ourselves. I just don't think it's an option for a believer in God. It's irreverent to hate ourselves. We don't have permission. So there is this section about appreciating how we were knit together. I think the verse about being fearfully and wonderfully made probably is talking about God and not us. And so you'll see in things like the Net Bible and some more recent commentators where they do their own translation, that the fearfully and wonderfully is not so much about our creation, but it's about who God is and the way that he works. But the larger context is about our creation. The only biblical occurrence of the word golem is in verse 15. Right? My frame, my unformed, some versions have embryo or something like that. It's my golem, actually, in Hebrew. My golem was not hidden from you. It's like when I wasn't fully formed, when I was woven in the depths of the earth. And so, if I were to know all of your thoughts, same word as very early, the thoughts that God knows of ours, if we were to know his, well, we're just not capable of it, says that section. There's a poem that's pretty famous in English literature. I know at university, sometimes you go into a toilet cubicle and above the toilet roll you'll see arts degrees written. I think I've seen this. I actually did an arts degree, and one of the things that did for me was to give me a love for literature. And there's a terrific poem that I think really captures Psalm 139 as well as any. Now, it's got old-fashioned English, and so there's not much I can do about that. I'm not going to try and do a translation on the fly. It's one of those things that we'll catch some of it and we will miss some of it. And I don't think I've got time to read the whole thing. I'm going to read excerpts, but some of you will know the poem, The Hound of Heaven, and it's actually super, super deep. It's probably in my top 10, I think, of English literature. It's actually really moving. I'm hoping not to be too moved. And I wish I could read it all to you. I was tempted to just do that with my chapel talk, but I felt like biblical content was important as well. But this is a matter of the heart. You'll see the heart speaking here. The poet tries everything before admitting defeat. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the arches of the years. I fled him down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind. And in the midst of tears I hid from him and under running laughter. Up visted hopes I spared and shot, precipitated adown titanic glooms of chasmed fears. For those strong feet that followed after, but with unhurrying chase and unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, they beat, and a voice beat more instant than the feet. All things betray thee, who betrayest me. After a lot of fleeing, the poet talks about how he tried to find fulfillment in nature, and that failed as well. And he says, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, past those noised feet, a voice comes yet more fleet. Lo, naught contents thee, who content'st not me. Naked I wait thy love's uplifted stroke, my harness, piece by piece thou hast hewn from me, and smitten me to my knee. I am defenceless utterly. I slept, methinks, and woke, and slowly gazing, find me stripped in sleep. In the rash, lusty head of my younger powers, I shook the pillaring hours and pulled my life upon me. Grimed with smears, I stand amid the dust of the mounded years. My mangled youth lies dead beneath the heap. My days have crackled and gone up in smoke, have puffed and burst as sun starts on a stream. Ah, designer infinite, must thou char the wood ere thou canst limn with it, or shape with it? My freshness spent its wavering shower in the dust, and now my heart is as a broken fount, wherein tear drippings stagnate, spilt down ever from the dank thoughts that shiver upon the sightful branches of my mind. Such is what is to be, the pulp so bitter, how shall taste the rind? Now of that long pursuit comes on at hand the bruit. That voice is around me like a bursting sea. And is thy earth so marred, so shattered in shard on shard? Lo, all things fly thee, for thou fliest me. Strange, piteous, futile thing, wherefore should any set thee love apart, seeing none but I makes much of naught, of nothing? He said, and human love needs human meriting. How hast thou merited of all man's clotted clay the dingiest clot? Alack, thou knowest not how little worthy of any love thou art. Whom wilt thou find to love ignoble thee? Save me, save only me. All which I took from thee I did but take, not for thy harms, but just that thou mightst seek it in my arms. I told you. All which thy child's mistake fancies as lost, I've stored for thee at home. Rise, clasp my hand and come. Halts by me that footfall, is my gloom, after all, shade of his hand, outstretched caressingly? Ah, fondest, blindest, weakest, I am he whom thou seekest. Thou drivest love from thee who drivest me.